Alrighty, I believe we are ready to get started. Again, we welcome questions, so make sure you use the Q&A button and we'll be answering questions at the end of this webinar. Thank you for all of your patience. I'm glad to announce your amazing hosts today. We have Crissy Davis and Taylor St. Clair. You are in great hands. And with all that said, I will go ahead and hand it over to Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you. And so just to start, we are HR partners. We've been in business for 25 years now, and we started doing some webinars. We just want to make sure that we're able to give back, and we definitely want to share and just make sure that we can get this valuable information into the hands of the people who are looking for it. So as Sydney said, we certainly appreciate any suggestions. We want to know what it is that you want to hear about. Any topics, we're happy to take them on because this is what we do and what we enjoy doing as well. So we have today for you OSHA safety programs. So we're just going to go over, I know we had the logs and such just happen, but we want to make sure this is something that we're looking at, throughout the year and revisiting from time to time. And so Chrissy's going to get us started.
Great. Thank you, Taylor. So we are going over OSHA's safety program today. And OSHA's mission is to ensure safe and healthful working conditions for working men and women by authorizing enforcement of the standards developed under the Act, by assisting and encouraging the states in their efforts to assure safe and healthful working conditions, by providing for research, information, education, and training in the field of occupational safety and health. So creating an OSHA safety program, the main goal is to prevent work-related injuries, illness, and death. It's also to foster finding and fixing job site hazards before they can create injury or illness, allows employees to be proactive, builds trust, and enhances communication. Also, you may see higher quality in products and/or profits, higher employee morale, improved retention and recruiting, and more favorable image in the marketplace. So as we go through this presentation, we will discuss the employee's role in building and maintaining an effective safety program. And while we do that, employers can avoid indirect costs that also result from accidents, such as work stoppages, employee recovery away from work, investigations, replacing injured workers, loss or damage to machinery or property. And note that indirect cost of accidents have been estimated to be 2.7 times the direct cost of the accident alone. So really, it's in your best interest for your company to make sure that you do have a safety program and that you do follow it as well. As part of the development process, you'll need to determine what potential hazards exist at your company. And no two companies are exactly the same. So safety programs are specific to your company. An office environment will not have the same hazards as a warehouse. Not all hazards are present at your company. And when building a program, it can be modified based on the company needs.
All right. And then, so we have here some steps to get you started. So essentially, you'll go down the list here, and all of these will make up a good program and good ideas to make sure we're checking out the list. Number one is making safety and health a top priority. Leading by example, implementing a reporting system, providing training, conducting safety inspections, collaborating with employees, actually implementing the hazard controls, addressing emergencies, and then making those improvements. And so this list here is just a perfect place to start your brainstorming session. This is something to say, hey, these are all the boxes that we need to check. We're going to build on all of these further. But this is the point where we'll want to get the conversation started. We want to make sure that everyone involved is committed, and we want to make sure that number one is very true, that safety and the health of our employees and our workers is top priority, because that's the most important one, and that's where we need to start as far as mindset goes. And so to break that down a little further, we have 6 core elements for safety programs, just to kind of walk you top to bottom here. So the first one is management leadership. We want to, again, demonstrate that commitment and communicate that commitment as well, because employees do look to you to set that example and set the expectations. And if you see something, we want to make sure we're calling it out as well, because, your job as a manager, as a leader, is to be hyper aware of your work environment and the happenings going on, within your realm. So very important that, when you're starting off, you get the management on board and that we're all saying the same thing when we present to the employees. And then, of course, from there, we want to make sure that we bring the employees in. This is something that everyone's going to need to be involved in. We're going to want to make sure we're setting the goals, that we take suggestions as well, track progress, and investigate any incidents. Awareness is just the biggest thing here. The more we talk about safety and health, the more it is on everyone's mind. And this is a relationship at the end of the day. So, with these things in mind, I think this is something that is easy to make sure management and employees are on the same page. We all agree that this is high priority. And so that's a good place to build a relationship and make sure that it is strong. And, it's important to remember as well that, negligence or looking the other way, that may never affect you at all. If you see something, you're like, "Ooh, that should probably be picked up," or "Hey," something like that. It could never affect you at all, but it could affect someone else. And so it is very important just to make sure that we are in that team environment and that this is something that we're bringing everyone into and everyone is on the same page. And then, of course, the hazard identification and assessment. So once we get everyone on board, we have everyone's eyes looking, we're going to want to make sure that we are actually walking the building. We want to make sure that we're actually looking through the documents that are our processes as of right now and identifying those hazards, evaluating the risks, putting them in a list and prioritizing them for control methods. We're also going to want to define routine, non-routine, and emergency situations as well. So of course, there's so many things that, you could not foresee happening in the future, that might never happen. You may never have a tornado come through, but it's still a possibility. And so we want to make sure that preparedness is, hand in hand with this as well, considering all of the options. And especially when we're walking the workplace, we're here, every day. We're here Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day. We see the same things every day. So it could be very, good for you to bring maybe someone else from a different department to walk along with you that could be looking at this with fresh eyes, because that's the most important thing, is that your brain only sees, what it wants to see a lot of times, and we're not paying attention to that thing in the corner. So very important to make sure that we're just thinking about this from all angles as well. And then, of course, the prevention and control. So once we've identified these items and we've put them on a list, as far as where our priorities lie, then we're going to want to make sure that we actually take the right steps. It's going to require both employer and employee engagement to identify and select methods for eliminating, preventing, or controlling workplace hazards. Some of us just work in hazardous environments, and that's kind of the way it is. So in that case, we want to make sure that we have the correct controls in place. The controls are elected according to a hierarchy. So they're listed here, and this is how it's listed in the OSHA handbook. Engineering solutions, but that's going to be essentially equipment safety. We want to make sure everyone knows what they're using and how to use it. Safe work practices, this is where we put the rules in place and say, hey, make sure you do this, make sure you don't do this, and make sure everyone's aware of that. I mean, you can even have employees sign off. Administrative controls is going to be access. So we want to make sure that the people that are using the machinery are the people that have been trained and that do actually, need to use this for their daily work. And then, of course, the personal protection equipment as well. We want to make sure that we're providing the appropriate tools and that everyone, feels safe and has those safeguards in place. And, from there, we'll just want to make sure we're developing a plan that ensures controls are implemented, interim protection is provided, progress is tracked, and the effectiveness of the control is verified. Throughout all of this, it's all a process, and this is why we're bringing up OSHA Safety Now. I know we got the logs out of our way, and we don't have to worry about that again until January next year, but this is a process, and this is, when we agreed to commit to make this a priority. It's important to remember that this is something that should be on our minds throughout the year, and that we should be making sure that what we have in place is actually effective and is actually working out in the best interest of everyone. And then, of course, education and training. So all employees are trained to understand. We want to make sure all employees are trained to understand how the program works and how to carry out the responsibilities assigned to them. Managers, supervisors will receive training on safety concepts and their responsibilities for protecting workers' rights and responding to reports and concerns. And everyone should be trained to recognize these workplace hazards and to understand the control measures that have been implemented. So these are things that, you could have posted about. These are things you can have regular trainings about. It's maybe not even just an annual training. We can do a monthly training. So certainly things to think about and make sure that we're hitting this as many times as possible, that this is instilled. And even if, we're telling them things that they already know, that's good at the end of the day, because we want to make sure that everyone's aware of this. Also, OSHA safety training online, they have many videos, many resources that you can access for free that kind of start from the bottom. They can be very specific as well to your industry. And a lot of these, the OSHA safety handbooks will be specific to your particular industry. So OSHA is certainly here to help and make sure that you have this category covered. And then, of course, program evaluation and improvement. Again, we just want to make sure that we're actually making sure what we have in place works. And we want to make sure that we are revisiting this. It's not something to just implement and walk away from. And so that's the main things when we're thinking about this. We want to make sure, again, that this is a relationship that we're building, that we're all looking out for each other. That we all understand that this is something serious and this is something that's a priority. And then we understand, of course, that the actions of one person could affect someone else. So we want to create a positive domino effect and definitely lean away of, well, this is how it's always been done, especially when we receive new information, and there's new technology coming out every single day. And so we just want to make sure that we're keeping up. And then to shift, we're going to cover a lot of different items from here, but just to kind of show you, I'm sure we're representing a lot of different industries here today, but a lot of these items these are the 10 most frequently cited standards for the year 2021. And so this is fall protection, respiratory protection, ladders, scaffolding, And you'll see, you know, a lot of these are just general industry. So they could be like hazard communication. That's across the board. So that certainly applies to you. And so just things to be aware, this could be part of your brainstorming session as well. Say, hey, these are the number one things cited for while we're building this program. Let's make sure we're at least, you know, we're looking at number one really hard. We're looking at number two really hard and keep going, you know. So valuable information for you there.
So where to begin? So you're going to start with the 10 most frequently cited standards, and those standards are listed on OSHA as well. And, you know, OSHA, as Taylor mentioned before, is a wealth of information. Choose one and evaluate the existing hazards. So essentially what that means is you choose one and put a team together, walk around, identify that particular hazard, and then fix the hazard as well. Some hazards may be easy to fix. Some may require you to, you know, bring in somebody else to help you fix it. Also determine potential hazards. So maybe one doesn't exist, but maybe you see something that could potentially be one. Create a safety meeting around each standard. So this is key to put, when you find those standards and you're looking at them, automatically you could have, under the 10 most frequently cited standards, you could have 10 meetings automatically. OSHA has tools to develop those meetings. They have the OSHA Training Institute education centers, and they have courses and seminars that you can take. YouTube also has videos available, and you can also check out workplace safety websites. There's several different companies out there that have programs that you can actually purchase so that you don't have to do it on your own. However, OSHA and YouTube do provide those options for you where you can do that on your own. And get your employees involved. It is so key. They are the key to the success of the program and should be included in many steps of the process. This will create buy-in for the safety program and develop the employee goodwill as well. They will understand that the company has their best interest in mind, and by creating a safe environment to work in. You know, when you do this, building a safety program seems like a daunting process, but because there is so many resources out there and they're already built for you, all you have to do is possibly just plug and play and just do the training. So highly recommend getting out there and looking and seeing what's available to you. Here's some additional safety meeting ideas that are fairly quick, and a lot of these actually are good for any industry across the board. Emergency action plans. So if something happens in an emergency, a fire, what are you going to do? Have you discussed that with your employees and created a plan of how, you know, employees will access or enter or exit the building? Fire prevention plans, PPE as well, electrical safety, hand and portable power tools. I mean, in offices, sometimes you do have people that work in with small hand tools. Walking, working services, medical services, and first aid, lockout and tagout procedures. And document. We cannot state that enough. You need to keep track of your safety meetings. You include the topic, date, time, and location. Use a sign-in sheet for employees to sign in. So that's if you are together in one location, you can have them sign a sheet, and then that way you've documented their attendance. If you happen to do Zoom, because maybe you have employees that are remote, or it may be easier to do a Zoom, especially in an office environment, you can send to them via an electronic document that they can sign indicating that they've acknowledged that they've attended the safety training. Documentation can also answer the first question in an incident investigator's report. Did the employee receive adequate training to do the job? And the documentation is very key for this. They want to make sure that you did indeed have a safety training involving that particular injury that may have happened. So say if you have an employee that got injured by a forklift, did the company put forth forklift training for the person driving the forklift and for the employees who were on the floor as well, who may have contact with the forklift during their job. So it is very key to make sure that you do have adequate documentation for that. There's also a whistleblower program for OSHA. Employees have the right that if they see something, they need to say something. They also have the protection from retaliation if they do that. And that means an employer can't retaliate by taking adverse action against workers. And that would mean firing or laying off, demoting, denying overtime or promotion, disciplining, denying benefits, imitation or harassment, making threats, constructive discharge as well. So employees are protected from any adverse actions if they report any unsafe conditions. So make sure that you have an anti-retaliation policy in your company's handbook as well. So not only in your safety program, you have the whistleblower protection, you also have it in your handbook also. Train the managers on the policy and the whistleblower program and protect your employees. They are your best asset. So workers can file a retaliation complaint if they experience retaliation. They can file a complaint with OSHA, involve those concerns regarding hazardous working conditions. And workers have a legal right to refuse to work if the condition presents a risk of death or serious injury. Again, your employees are your company's best asset, and it will bode well for you to make sure that you do protect them. So there are small business resources. A lot of the companies that we work with are small business. And as you can see here, you have the NIOSH Small Business Resource Guide, small business development centers, workers' compensation carriers. Believe it or not, your workers' compensation carrier has information to assist you in making sure that you have a safe work environment. So if you have a broker for workers' compensation or the carrier itself, contact them, see what they have to be able to help you out. You also have professional associations. Sometimes they have information for you based on your particular company and industry. There's also Small Business Regulatory Enforcement Fairness Act, and it's responsive to small business inquiries, produce small entity compliance guides, and penalty reduction policies. So I highly recommend you look up some of these resources to help you out. They're out there. Some of them are free, and it really, I think, would really enhance your company as well. So it is your responsibility. Encourage employee participation. Again, they're your key asset. And if you encourage their participation, you get their buy-in, then they will follow through with it. See something, say something. And that can be across the board. Employees, managers, team leads, anybody. See something, say something. Evaluate potential hazards. Again, walking around the company, checking everything out, making sure that if there are potential hazards that they're being taken care of. Maintain your safety program. It's best to have one safety meeting a month. That way you have 12 a year. However, if there is an injury, make sure you have a safety meeting regarding that particular injury that happened so that you can immediately address it so that it doesn't happen in the future. Make sure to document those meetings and participation from the employees that go to those meetings as well. And celebrate safety milestones. Have ice cream social or something like that, to say, hey, 0 days of any accidents. Get everybody involved and in those safety milestones because it really will benefit your company.
All righty. Thank you, Crissy and Taylor. If you have any questions, go ahead and enter them into that Q&A section, or if you have any suggestions for future topics or anything else you would like us to cover, we'd be glad to do so. All right. I might go ahead and start us off with our first question. Question is, if I have a question about how OSHA rules apply to a specific situation at my business, how can I get answers?
I'll take that one, Sydney. So if you have specific situation for your business, it would be recommended that you contact OSHA's on-site consultation program. And that particular program, they have a website, but they also have a phone number as well, that you can contact them, discuss with them about your needs at your company and any concerns, and then they can walk you through the process of what you need to do.
Awesome. Thank you, Crissy. We have a second question. Are employers required to take steps to protect workers in extreme outdoor heat? What can I do if my indoor workplace is too hot or cold?
I can take that one. Yeah, and we're located in Georgia as well, so I'm sure that this is a pretty regular concern. I know in an office space, it's usually just a couple of degrees off of 72 is what's recommended. I believe they actually give a range. But I think the main thing here is they don't have regulations on this at the moment. Some states have set up their own regulations, but it's a small number of states at this point. So the main thing that we can do is make sure that we're offering protective equipment, make sure we're offering plenty of breaks, and that water is available. Because I will tell you that OSHA will investigate like any heat deaths in particular. They will investigate that because it's negligence on the part of handling and controlling that hazard. So that's kind of the way that they look at it as of right now on a federal level. But I would check to see if there's anything in particular for your state. I believe it's mostly the Northwest states that have those in place at this point in time.
Third question, will an employee be paid through normal payroll after a workers' comp claim is filed?
I can take that. So after a workers' comp claim is filed, that employee will be paid through workers' comp. If that employee is able to get back to say light duty work, then that light duty work, then they will be paid through payroll through the company itself. If you're unable to provide light duty work for that employee, they'll be covered under workers' comp.
Awesome. Do we have time for one more question, or should we go ahead and wrap it up?
Let's take one more.
All righty. Can an employee file their own insurance if they do not want to use workers' comp insurance?
No, I'll take that since I asked for it. So yes, they technically can. However, this is never advisable. We always recommend to go with workers' comp because generally if you go through your own insurance, as soon as the carrier finds out that this happened at work, they're going to make moves to decline that claim because it should technically fall under the workers' comp umbrella. So yeah, definitely always want to make sure that it goes through workers' comp in these cases, just to avoid making, that the employee doesn't end up with the full bill.
Awesome. All righty. And if there's any questions we didn't get answered, we'll make sure we reach out to you and answer those.
Yep, and we appreciate you all coming, especially working with us through the technical difficulties we had today. We do have another webinar coming up in 2 weeks, though. It'll be streamless, and it is going to be on data privacy and record keeping. So cover a lot of ways to kind of make sure that you're protected in a different way. You're protected online and how you should document correctly and things like that. We have covered an array of topics. You can find these online as well, where you can see our past webinars, so you can always revisit this, but feel free to reach out to us at all if you have any questions regarding this today, any past or any upcoming webinars. And thank you again for bearing with us. Y'all have a lovely rest of your day.